Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman, CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We're going to try to be very brief with this because this is something that I'm going to read to you that we received yesterday from a former McDonnell Douglas / Boeing employee of 37 years. This video today is the aerospace manufacturing process according to a 37-year retired aerospace worker. Very good man. And Joe, this goes for you. And this is what he wrote, okay? He's been in the thick of things, and here it is. For engineering for any part has been designed and evaluated and cleared by other design engineers and departments and at the manufacturer themselves before they send this blueprint out to suppliers, subcontractors, etc., or even within the company itself. The part component assemblies has the fabrication requirements assigned to it. The planning department at the company lays out the processes that need to be accomplished to make a good and acceptable part. This will include the acceptable companies that can supply materials, parts, and components and assemblies. Any processes to manufacture the part to be made, including the acceptable tolerances allowed. So basically they make a blueprint, they make a recipe, a work order, and a process in which those parts are going to be manufactured in. The quality assurance department then must ensure that all of these steps are actually accomplished in order to have a good part. The same process applies again for materials, parts, components, and assemblies. Then all of the documented and blueprints, etc., are stored on computer servers so that anyone can see who manufactured the parts with what company name, who was the person who actually worked on the part, whether it's a stamp or whether it's an initial. Usually they sign their name to it and date it so that anyone can see who manufactured the parts and assemblies at any time in the future. Also, the planning assessments are almost like a recipe so that you have the planning, you have all the recipe, and yes, there could be engineering changes, but you basically have the Bible of that manufacturing process. There are going to be other subparts to it if they need to have engineering changes. That's a big part of it. The problem we're going to go see Boeing real quick, is that in 2002, Boeing basically gave up supplier inspection to a bulletin. The bulletin is right over here. In 2002, for 22 years, Boeing gave up supplier visits. Now, I wouldn't say totally, they probably visited a couple, but not fully because they gave authorization to the supplier like this, ladies and gentlemen. Send in your AS9100 certificate as long as it's ANSI ANAB accredited, because Boeing sits on ANSI ANAB's board. They sit on one board that is the director, and they sit on the other board, the management committee, which can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. You have the factor here that you send in the certificate, you send in the parts, and Boeing doesn't have to go visit the facility because this piece of paper illustrates to Boeing that you're building a great part. And I've been in business for 13 years, and I have the biggest complaints from people who work within the aerospace, the confines of aerospace, and they complain all the time to me that they're supposed to be ISO certified and they're sending us wrong parts. And I can see errors, and the reason why, of course, they send wrong type parts is that everybody has the hint out there. If it's Boeing, don't get going because this supplier bulletin shows that. Boeing sits on ANSI ANAB's board right over by ANSI ANAB, right over by ANSI itself, and ANAB that accredits their suppliers. You also have the factor that in 2009, the FAA gave them authorization to put in materials, components like the MCAS system without having to tell the FAA because Boeing is a regulator. That means David Calhoun. That means before Calhoun, it was Dennis Muhlenberg. They are FAA administrators. I know it's tough for you to believe that, but within the confines of aerospace, this is what most of the business owners tell me about their AS9100 certificate accredited by ANSI ANAB, pay to play. You pay to play, you get the ticket in the game, you get into Boeing, and they don't even have to come visit you. On their supplier portal, it requires ANSI ANAP. On top of it, and as I told you, and to attest to integrity and honesty and the truth of what I'm telling you, it's right over here. Boeing can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. So to make matters final for you, ladies and gentlemen, and Joe, thank you very much for sending that information. I appreciate it. When they were made a regulator, rather than grabbing it, rather than you having the CEOs grab it and run with it, appreciate it, stick out their chest and be proud, they cut corners. As you can see, 2017 over here, they fudged documentation. And most recently, in their Boeing Bell V-22 composite facility, I think it's in Pennsylvania, the DOJ came in, who also sits on ANSI's board, right over by Boeing, FBI, etc., DOJ, DOD, etc., and FAA. The DOJ gave them an $8.1 million fine because they were kind of fudging documentation. With composites, it's critical that you don't. Composites needs temperature, time, and pressure. And if you have one of those that is lacking, you can have a possible failure in service on one of those parts because of ply separation. And what happens is vibratory stresses cause the plies to separate and lose possibly the aircraft with their people on board. And the Federal Aviation Administration also sits over by Boeing. My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com. Again, this video is the aerospace manufacturing process according to a 37-year retired aerospace worker. Joe, I thank you.